everyone, and welcome to my party, where I get to discuss classic movies from the 80s and 90s and tear them apart scene by scene for your enjoyment. Today, the movie I will be eviscerating is a thrilling little suspense film called Eye for an Eye. Yet another movie from Paramount that I can't watch for free with Paramount Plus. Good thing I still own the DVD. It's not highbrow stuff, but every once in a while, I'll take it out and give it a watch. It stars Sally Field, Kiefer Sutherland, Ed Harris, Olivia Burnett, and here's a shocker, Beverly D'Angelo. I completely forgot about her role in this. Even after rewatching the movie, no core memory was unlocked. Not sure why she was so completely forgettable in this. She plays Sally Field's co-worker, but she seems to be also a friend of the family, maybe? The little girl who plays Megan is named Alexandra Kyle, and I remember seeing her in a 90s TV movie called In Quiet Night about 20 or so years ago. Olivia Burnett has been in a few TV movies as well. She played a teen neighbor in the sob story Casey's Gift for Love of a Child, which is a really effed up name for a movie about a little boy who drowns in a neighbor's pool. Something I've learned from watching TV movies is that the more heartwarming the title, the more depressing the plot line. Anyway, back to Eye for an Eye. In the opening scene, a huge bat is flying around the head of a little blonde girl as she screams in her bed. The mother comes rushing in, and I've been informed that it's actually a moth. Still just as scary. I'd want it dead too. But the mother is too tender-hearted for that. She plucks the moth off the lampshade and carries it to the window where she sets it free in the night air. Any TV movie that opens with a sweet scene such as this one is probably going to be filled with bloodshed before the credits roll. By the way, is that something that you learn to do when you become a mother? Cup a moth in your bare hands like that? You're probably expected to do all kinds of crazy things when you become a parent. I'm so glad I don't have kids. The next day, we meet the husband and older daughter. Daughter Julie is a teenager and learning French. She's 17 and still learning the basics, such as le table. That's basically English, only said with a snooty accent and with le tacked onto the front. I'm sure I learned basic stuff like that in 6th grade. The little blonde girl prances into the kitchen in a frilly dress. It's her birthday. Everything must be about her. After work, the mother Karen is held up in a nasty traffic jam. She calls home to say she'll be late. She catches her older daughter Julie, who is so thoughtful. Turns out she ditched soccer practice just to help with the decorations. Knowing what's about to come, I really wish Julie had been a little more of a jerk. Instead, she's taking the Barbie cake into the living room while it tips precariously to her left, but somehow she manages to get it to the table in one piece. Now there's someone at the door. Julie opens it. Maybe she made the fatal mistake of letting the man know that no one was home. You know, the one thing we learned never to tell a stranger back in the 90s. How in the world did this man know there was a vulnerable young girl alone in the house? She wasn't even supposed to be there. Her mother should have been home by now. The family is about to have a big party, so a bunch of people could walk in at any moment. Must be one of those weird quirks in the movie universe where everything aligns just perfectly in order to screw you over. Sally Field makes the mistake all actors do in situations of surprise. You can see the shock register on her face even before the gasping sounds begin. And then when she hears her daughter struggling for breath, she takes way too long to react in the appropriate manner, which would be to yell, "What's going on over there? I'm calling the cops!" and hanging up to do just that. Instead, she goes running around like a headless chicken for a few minutes, trying to find someone else in the traffic jam who has a cell phone, which in the mid-90s was like searching for a pool of fresh water in the middle of a desert. She finds a nice older lady who just so happens to have a cell phone lying around. She tries to get Julie to respond to her, but by now the line has gone silent. Karen races home in a taxi, leaving her car behind. I understand the traffic wasn't moving and she needed to get home. I just feel so bad for those poor people stuck behind her. Certainly it's not as bad as a 17-year-old in mortal danger, but it still kind of sucks for those other folks. Who knows what else those poor people were dealing with that day? And besides, how did she even get a taxi in that traffic? By the time the cops arrive at the house, Julie is dead. The man must have known the clock was ticking when he heard his victim's mother screaming on the phone, and yet he stuck around just long enough to finish the job. How dumb can you possibly be? He must have had total faith in the ineptitude of local law enforcement. Otherwise, he would have hauled his butt out of there as soon as he heard someone screaming for the police. Seriously, what were the odds the mother would have been on the phone with her when it all went down anyway? Well, knowing how long a mother can yap on a phone, probably quite good. Now wait until you hear how the girl died. Death by ice sculpture. It's the kind of thing you only hear about in cautionary tales. The kind Ralphie's mother told in The Christmas Story. I guarantee you, if this was The Christmas Story, the mother never would have agreed to an ice sculpture at a kid's party. Too dangerous, she would have said, and she would have been right. The mother and father are questioned at the police station. The father spouts the same tired cliches. Why are you asking my poor wife all these questions? Why isn't the guy in jail already? Why doesn't life work as perfectly as it does in every other movie but this one? The detective asks if the girl had any boyfriends. Karen says no, and that she was a good kid. Apparently good 17-year-old girls don't have boyfriends. Glad she cleared that up for them. The next morning, Karen is awakened by her younger daughter Megan, who seems surprisingly chill considering the fact that her birthday was called off unexpectedly the day before. She asks where Julie is. Nobody's told her anything yet. Her father starts to give her the talk about bad things happening to good people, but he gets cut off before he can get to the point. The crime scene tape hasn't even been fully taken down yet, and still they're able to have the funeral reception in the living room where everything took place. An older aunt trips on a kid's toy and falls to the ground. Karen bursts into inappropriate laughter. Not sure why an old woman nearly getting a concussion is so funny, but I understand it's probably her way of coping. For the most part, everyone is back to normal. Megan acts like she doesn't have a care in the world, racing ahead of her parents on afternoon outings or standing next to shady men while doing some sightseeing. Her father is not concerned about her reckless behavior at all. Is Karen the only one who cares? At the police station, a cop talks with Karen about her daughter's case. He informs her of a local support group. Donald Logue has a small role as a man grieving the murder of his younger sister. At the support group, he talks about the kind of justice he'd like to see done to the killer, but he admits it would be a sin and wants to be reunited with his sister on the other side when he dies. The parents of a dead 12-year-old boy talk about the man who took their son from them during a robbery. He's now out on parole. The woman who speaks after them says she planted a tree when her loved one's killer was paroled. The group lets her know there's no room for that kind of smug superiority within these walls. After the meeting, Karen opens the door to her room and comes upon a scene straight out of The Godfather. The parents of the dead 12-year-old boy have some kind of shady business deal going on with another member of the group. At home, Megan is eating an ice cream bar in bed and watching cartoons. She drops some of her ice cream on Julie's pillow. I'm surprised it took her so long. She was basically smearing that thing all over her chin. But she seems surprised. I doubt it was an accident. Back at the support group, Karen meets a woman named Angel, whose young son Sean was murdered. Angel shows Karen a picture of the ill-fated Tots. He looks like he stepped right off a sitcom. Megan informs her father that Julie's pillow has been stained because she's afraid of her mother's wrath. The father says it's okay, they can wash the stain right out. But Karen is steaming mad when she finds out Julie's scent has been removed from the pillow. She screams at her husband and breaks her younger daughter's heart. About time the younger daughter shows some kind of emotion besides indifference. The mother seems contrite when she finds out it was Megan who ruined the pillow. I call BS. In real life, she wouldn't care. She'd still be ready to rip someone's head off. The police inform the mother that they found the guy who killed her daughter. It was a delivery man, and they have his DNA. It's done. She can finally breathe again. Oh wait, there's been a hiccup. A new guy has taken over the state's case, not the one they were expecting. But no worries, he's got this covered. As it turns out, he doesn't have it covered after all. The DA was supposed to have allowed the defense to run their own tests on the DNA evidence, but they dropped the ball, so now the perp is going to walk. Knowing that they've got nothing on him, the suspect, who has the fitting name of Robert Dube, gloats by saying to Karen on his way out, "So sorry." Julie was known for having a stutter. That was his way of telling her mother that he did in fact do it, and that he's not so sorry after all. What an a-hole. Karen's husband Mac leaps on him, and good thing there isn't an ice sculpture anywhere nearby. I'm sure it's just another day in court for the bystanders. At first, Karen responds to her worsening situation by not being able to get out of bed and go into work. But her husband convinces her that there's been enough wallowing in despair and it's time to move on. She agrees. She requests the arrest package from a clerk standing behind an official-looking desk. This clerk clearly hates her job. Or maybe she's attempting to move on from her own personal tragedy we know nothing about. The clerk informs Karen that it will be a $15 fee for the package, as if that's supposed to scare off a grieving mother. The clerk whites out Doob's address, but reassures Karen it's not exactly hard to chip it off if she so chooses. Glad to see this woman doesn't take her job all that seriously. Now that Karen has Doob's address, she stalks him to his home address. He lives in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood, so of course, at this time in history, Macarena plays while she watches him. Karen confides in her coworker, played by Beverly D'Angelo, that she's stalking Doob. Her coworker assures her this is a bad idea. Karen decides she's going to keep doing what she's doing regardless. During her next little stalking event, she spots Doob delivering groceries to a woman. He doesn't go inside the house, but instead he goes to relieve some of that pent-up tension by the fence while he watches his intended target through a window. He spies Karen's car out of the corner of his eye and knows he's being watched. Karen tries to get the cops to do something about this, but there's nothing they can do. What else is new? Karen is forced to warn the woman herself that she's being spied on by her delivery man. But the woman doesn't speak English. Karen starts to speak a little Spanish in order to gain entry to her home, but once inside, she gives up on the pretense that she knows any Spanish whatsoever and starts speaking English again to this terrified woman who doesn't know what's going on and probably wouldn't understand even if there wasn't a serious language barrier. The woman's male partner comes home and shoos Karen away. So at this point, if the woman dies, it's her problem because she refused Karen's help. Apparently the cop from earlier was listening to Karen when she expressed her concerns. He pays Doob a little visit and warns him that the very next time he F's up, he'll be in serious trouble. Ooh, that'll teach him. At the next grief meeting, Karen learns two things. First of all, some people are only there for the free food. Secondly, the parents of the 12-year-old boy who was killed have just seen justice done, finally. The killer was shot down in a drive-by. Karen knows what kind of justice this was. She saw the boy's parents talking to that strange man in private the other day. Angel and Karen become friends and hang out together. Megan is fighting with some a-hole kid on the playground. She goes into a little clubhouse on the school property, and the boy stands in the doorway. Suddenly, Robert Doob appears and yanks the boy from view. Not sure what he did with him, but he's out of the picture now. Robert and Megan are alone in the little shack. Megan offers him a mud pie. It's some fake-looking cookie she made in art class, I guess. Doob teaches the little girl a dirty rhyme, and just like that, the two are buddies. Somehow, none of the adults on the playground pick up on the fact that there's this huge, creepy-looking guy playing with one of the kids in a tiny playhouse. Later, Megan gives her mother the spare cookie she made in art class, and when she sees Doob on the sidewalk, she points him out to Karen, saying it's her playground pal. I have to say, for the sister of a murdered girl, this kid is especially clueless. You would think if anyone would have been a prime candidate for the stranger danger lecture, it would have been little Megan, and yet she seems blissfully unaware of the dangers lurking out there in the world. Doob tells Karen that if he catches her spying on him again, he'll be coming for her remaining kid. Instead of taking this opportunity to give her daughter the lesson on strangers she should have given her earlier, Karen decides the very next thing she needs to be doing is going to the vigilante man at the next meeting and asking for his help in eliminating the problem. Apparently the man thinks Karen has a death wish because he tells her to meet him at an empty garage late at night. At the garage, she meets up with two men who tell her they won't be taking care of the problem for her after all. She'll have to do the dirty work herself, but they'll help. They'll train her, and they'll help plot out the attack. At home, Karen and her husband get into an argument. She starts it by telling him he doesn't understand her because Julie wasn't his bio daughter. He flips out and tells her he did so care just as much about Julie, crying what looks like crocodile tears. It's probably the only time in the movie where he expresses any kind of affection for the kid who wasn't his, and I don't buy it. Too little, too late. There's a short scene where Karen is pushing Megan in a swing, even though Megan is totally old enough to pump her legs and needs to stop being so freaking lazy. And the husband-father, Mac, is watching from the window with this cold look in his eye. If I didn't know better, I would be thinking he was the actual killer of Julie. But there's no mystery to this movie, so the scene is basically useless and can be thrown into the metaphorical garbage. Karen is leaving one of the grief meetings now and saying goodbye to her good friend Angel. Angel says, "See you next Tuesday." The writers do know what that expression means, don't they? I am shocked that a group of survivors of violent crime are letting Karen walk off alone to the parking garage at night on an abandoned city street. There's literally no one else around as she's walking into the garage, aside from a man who appears to be stalking her. At least she thinks he's stalking her, and she knocks him to the ground with one of the moves she must have learned in self-defense class. He thinks he's being robbed, and she realizes her mistake. To him, she is extremely apologetic, but after he leaves and she's walking away, she smiles to herself because she was able to overpower some random man who had no sinister intentions at all and was probably the one who was always picked last in dodgeball as a kid. Megan is crying late at night. Probably another bug. We find out that Megan blames herself for Julie's death because Julie died on her birthday. I guess it would make sense to a 6-year-old who doesn't understand the way the world works. Karen reassures her that never in the history of the world has someone been killed by their sister's birthday. In his apartment in town, the killer is watching some music video while drumming the heck out of his thighs with a couple of drumsticks. This video is clearly turning him on, and I don't blame him. Those 90s music videos were extremely provocative and could easily set off a psychopath who was already hovering on the edge. He relieves the tension by eating a tub of ice cream. I bet he doesn't gain a pound. Is this not the most contemptible human in the cinematic history? He's also wearing a cross. Interesting side story, when I was a kid, I was terrified of walking through the basement at the local theater to get from stage right to stage left. My dad told me to wear a cross, I guess to ward off evil spirits. Apparently it wouldn't have worked with this a-hole. It would have probably just egged him on. The two men helping Karen get revenge are talking about whether or not she'll go through with a plan. One of them thinks she's too soft, the other isn't concerned. Angel approaches Karen and warns her not to do what she's planning to do because she'll get caught. Karen comes home to a dark house. Her husband is hiding in the shadows, like the killer I'm not entirely convinced he's not. He turns on the light and she knows she's in sheep dip. She lied about being out to lunch with her husband earlier. She was clearly doing something else that she didn't want people to know about. He wants her to know he doesn't appreciate the lies. He finds out about the training she's been doing. She says it makes her feel safer. He asks her if she bought, protection. She says no, and it's the truth. She didn't buy the kind of protection he's talking about. It was given to her. She would make an excellent attorney if she one day decides to switch careers. Maybe she could spend the rest of her life getting people like Dube off with that clever dodging of the truth. Karen goes over to Angel's place, and guess who opens the door? Angel's dead son, Sean. Turns out he wasn't dead after all. How does it feel to be lied to, Karen, huh? I have to say, though, telling a grieving mother that you also lost a child to murder is pretty freaking cold. Turns out Angel is undercover with the FBI, scoping out vigilantes at the meetings. Angel makes it crystal clear for Karen. If she goes ahead with her plans, it's against the law. You can't go around killing people unless it's self-defense. I know your name's Karen. Surely you can appreciate being a stickler for the rules. And what about Megan? What will she learn from all of this if her mother decides it's okay to take the law into her own hands? And what Angel says is a good point. Does she really want to lead little Megan astray in life? Keep in mind, Karen still hasn't gotten around to teaching Megan stranger danger. She skipped ahead of that by quite a bit. I don't care for vigilantes myself, but I still hope Dube gets what's coming to him. At least in the context of this movie, he's left Karen absolutely no other choice. But with the FBI breathing down her neck, what's a Karen to do? Knock knock, delivery for the woman in town who failed to heed Karen's good faith warning. Dube walks right into her house this time and kicks the door shut. She doesn't like the sound of that. She's eyeing him suspiciously now. There's a crucifix hanging on the woman's wall, but we've already determined Dube is the kind of guy who would laugh at such holy objects of faith. He slams her around the house for a bit. She is later found dead on her dinner table. A detective calls up Karen and lets her know that they're holding Dube temporarily for this murder, but they've basically got nothing on him. They're just letting her know that he's killed another one, she was right, and once again, he's probably going to walk. Karen says, "Thanks for the heads up." No, just kidding. That's not what she says. She tells the detective, "Forget you," because that's just about the worst thing you can say to someone. I'm kidding again, that's not the word she uses. She reminds me a little of Patty Duke's character in A Killer Among Friends in this scene. More time spent alone in a parking garage. This family is highly unconcerned about their safety, considering the nightmare they're living. People who've never experienced so much as a broken nail are more concerned about being attacked. There are women out there who legit won't return their shopping carts to the corral because it means leaving their kids alone in the car for 15 seconds. And yet here's this woman walking alone at night and just chilling in empty parking garages. She goes back to her office to hide some work documents so that her coworker can call her up in a panic and say all of the documents are missing. And now Karen can't leave for vacation with her husband and child. She needs to straighten things up at the office, and she can meet them later. Yes, more deceitful behavior from Karen, who has big things planned for that night and can't have a pesky husband and daughter around to distract her. She goes to Dube's place. She wears a Lakers hat. What's with the baseball caps? Does she really think this is a sufficient disguise? Is she trying to pass herself off as a Lakers fan because everybody who'd otherwise recognize her knows she's really not one at all? She breaks into Dube's apartment, where she finds lots of dirty magazines. She also finds Megan's red cookie art project in his drawer. She messes the place up and leaves the hat behind so that he finds it when he returns. Apparently, there's only one possible Lakers fan out there. He knows exactly who it is. Megan and her father are singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm on the ride to their vacation home. The kind of song people sing when they're completely clueless to the fact that a loved one is currently in mortal danger. Meanwhile, at home, Karen is putting on some classical music. Good music for the bloodshed that's about to come. I get the feeling she's watched Clockwork Orange. She seems like that kind of woman. Dube breaks into her house. Miles away, Megan is in the car with her father, singing the little rhyme Dube taught her on the playground. Her father asks her where she learned it. She could have said on the playground, and it would have been true, and her father would have brushed it off as kid stuff. But no, she hasn't learned anything from the lawyering her mother has been doing a lot of lately. She decides to tell the whole truth. She learned it from the guy her mother obsessively watches on the news. So apparently Megan did know who this Dube guy was all along, and she legit didn't care. The dad immediately turns the car around. Is this going to be yet another movie where the woman is saved from harm due to the miraculous timing of someone who's come to her aid at the exact right moment? Deus Ex Machina? In this case, the guy coming to save her is named Mac, so it fits. Dube climbs up the stairs and walks into the bathroom where the shower is running. He thinks he's caught her, but when he opens the shower curtain, what do you know? There's just a towel hanging there, which I guess resembles a human body through a shower curtain. Karen's now got him cornered. She's armed. Now he's the one who realizes he's in sheep dip. He does what any victim would do in this kind of situation. He stalls her by getting her to talk about her daughter. She doesn't realize this is what he's doing until he somehow manages to knock her down. They fight on the stairs. Good guys and bad guys are always fighting on stairs in these kinds of movies. She somehow makes it to the lower landing and grabs the gun. Darn it, he's trapped again. She starts firing. She's such a bad shot that it takes her several attempts to even slow him down before he falls dead on top of her. The police arrive a little later and ask her questions. The one detective she's been dealing with knows exactly what happened here. Clearly she lured the man to her house so that she could kill him in self-defense. It makes total sense. Grieving mothers of murdered girls probably do that very kind of thing all of the time. At this point, the husband arrives home with a daughter. He tells Megan to stay behind, and he rushes to the house to find out what's happening. He sees Dube being zipped into a body bag. Karen, thankfully, is alive and well, sitting on the living room couch, probably a few feet from her daughter's leftover bloodstains. Mac is torn. He looks to his daughter waiting in the car. His daughter stares back at him with a questioning look on her face. Otherwise, she's completely unmoved by everything going on. Should he give Megan a thumbs up? Let her know everything's A-okay? Nah, just let her sit and stew for a bit. Serves her right. Maybe it will put a little fear in her for once. He joins his wife on the couch, while his daughter remains in the car, presumably being cared for by the cops. The credits roll. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.